Jenny Hansson is live outside the Clackamas Town Center. And Jenny, it was around this time of day a year ago when we learned of the chaos inside the mall.
Well, Ken, it did happen 1 year ago today here at the Clackamas Town Center, and it was still very chaotic at this time. The shooting happened about 3:30. At 4 o'clock, emergency responders still trying to figure out how many shooters they might be dealing with, how many victims they might have inside, also how many people were still stuck inside of the mall. Jeff Gianola gives us a timeline of those tragic events as they unfolded that day.
December 11th, 2012, 3:15 in the afternoon. Holiday shoppers are coming in and out of Clackamas Town Center. No one aware of the horror about to take place. 3:28 p.m. A 22-year-old man named Jacob Roberts runs into the mall, entering from the parking lot into the Macy's store. He's wearing a hockey mask and military-style clothing, and he's armed with an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle. 3:29, customers inside Macy's call 911.
It was right outside of our store, though. All we heard a gunshot from someone running outside of the front of our store. There is a window next to my store that is totally shattered.
We're at Macy's upstairs fragrance.
Who was shot?
I don't know. I'm hiding underneath the register.
3:30 p.m. About 1 minute later, the first Clackamas Sheriff deputies arrive on the scene. Other shoppers are calling 911, some barely whispering, afraid and scared.
Calling about the shooting?
Yes. It's Clackamas Town Center.
Okay, do you know where the suspect is?
All I know is that he ran past the jewelry department.
What deputies don't know, Roberts has entered the mall's food court, firing his weapon. 3 people have been hit. Some officers are now inside the mall, others just arriving. CERT teams are on their way. 911 calls are now describing the gunman.
He's got a white face mask on black. He's got a small, almost looks like a
Black on black coat or black on black shirt?
black on black coat.
Then the first reports of victims.
Oh my God, someone is down by Best Buy Mobile. You need to get an ambulance here. They're already being dispatched, just a moment.
54-year-old Cindy Ewell has been shot and killed. Roberts has also killed 45-year-old Stephen Forsyth. A third bullet has wounded 15-year-old Christina Shevchenko. As officers search for the gunman, a shopper tries to help Christina.
Where's the pain?
It's on the right side next to her ribs, next to her ribcage, and she has holes in her sweater.
Outside the mall, more police and deputies are arriving as panicked shoppers flee. 3:51 p.m. A Clackamas County Sheriff officer finds Jacob Roberts in a corridor off the main mall. He is dead from a self-inflicted gunshot. By this time, local news stations are responding to the mall. Point 6 news crews are set up at different entrances to the mall, talking to witnesses.
Once we got outside, people start saying, go inside, he's coming, and then we start running inside again.
I was helping a customer, and during the sale, there were 5 to 7 gunshots, a machine gun shot right outside my store. We ended up later seeing a clip just on the ground between us and Forever 21 and Macy's Home Furniture. CERT teams are now sweeping the mall. Officers ordering shoppers to evacuate, worried there may be more than one gunman. Officers later say most people did the right thing.
I heard many people locked in place, many people ran. Those are the 2 most appropriate things to do in these circumstances.
Then a few hours after it all started, word comes that it's over. Roberts was the lone gunman.
Is he still shooting? Are you still hearing shots?
Negative, I'm not hearing you shot.
2 innocent people dead, a young girl wounded, a gunman who took his own life. It started out as a day like any other, until it turned into a nightmare we will never forget.
And in joining me now live, Clackamas County Sheriff Craig Roberts. And Sheriff Roberts, how did this shooting change things for your department from that point forward?
Well, I think one of the big things is after this horrific event that we really sat down with all the stakeholders and players and looked at how we might be able to do things a little bit better, critique it. Communication was a huge issue on this particular day since cell towers were shut down, and so we really looked at a lot of different ways where we could respond more appropriately with the lack of communication.
Right, and when you say communication, you mean between the departments, with the fire department even, and just the different responses responders who came out here.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we usually have to do is make several phone calls. And since that time, we've come up with one particular phone call from the Oregon State Sheriff's Association where we can request a whole variety of resources without me having to make a lot of phone calls and get an immediate response.
And also, there are a lot of little things that the public wouldn't notice, like your officers all have maps of the Clackamas Town Center Mall now, the layout of the mall on them at all times.
Right. Right now, we're providing maps for all the employees that respond out in the field. And one of the things that we found is that while officers knew the mall, store names had changed. And so that communication became a little bit more of a challenge. And so making sure they have updated maps with the new store names that are in charge of the mall.
I remember being in the newsroom and reading on Twitter accounts from people who were inside the mall, witnesses, but also your agency was tweeting out some of this information as well. How has social media changed how you respond to events like this that are constantly unfolding and developing?
I think it's been a real asset for law enforcement, and it's just like Coin Local 6 has so many followers that if we put something out that you guys are able to retweet it, get it out to a huge amount of people. And it had to do with mental health resources. A lot of people left the mall with all their items behind, and so it was a way to help communicate with folks about how they could get those items that they left, and just a whole variety of resources. So it really does help us. In the Boston situation, it became huge, as it is in many of our cases right now of using social media.
Okay, well, Sheriff Roberts, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're going to be at the vigil tonight as well, and you're a busy man tonight, but we appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, there were about 10,000 people who were inside of the mall that day when this happened a year ago. Many of them were employees who still are very impacted by that tragedy. Chris Holmstrom has that story.
It's hard to imagine it's already been 1 year since the deadly shooting.
Out of here! Everybody out of here!
It was surreal. It seemed like something out of a movie with, everybody screaming, the gunfire.
For Bobby Begley, that movie was reality.
The shots started ringing out, and there was just mass panic.
Bobby was working at the mall when the gunman opened fire. At the time, he wasn't really sure what was happening, but several shots later, survival mode kicked in.
At the point of hearing shots and then seeing shell casings come down the escalator, I decided to change my route, jump over the escalator, and not go up into the food court. I ran down and out towards Sears.
I remembered the feeling, the power of the emotion in the mall.
Carol Gross also remembers the sights and sounds. In fact, just days after the deadly shooting, the Red Cross volunteer spent her time at the Clackamas Town Center Mall, providing emotional support to anyone in need.
There was a tremendous amount of mutual support, and I think that was probably the predominant feeling.
Memory books were displayed, giving people the opportunity to write messages for the family of the victims. Along the way came tears, fear, and numbness.
And basically listen to what they had to say and to acknowledge their grief and their compassion and their experiences through all of this.
Hard to even really talk about.
And 1 year later, anxiety still kicks in for Bobby.
I'm on edge. It'll always be in the back of my mind. I'll always be kind of looking over my shoulder, especially during this time of the year. It's something that kind of sticks with you.
Carol refers to this as anniversary response. She says it's something people in this area will always remember during the holidays. But as time goes on, the focus will change.
I think it's very important not to focus on the violence that happened, but to remember the compassion and the strength that came out of that.
Reporting for Coin 6 News, I'm Chris Holmstrom.
And there will be a vigil here tonight outside of the mall. It's near the entrance to the movie theater and food court where this all happened a year ago. They will be passing out candles and programs starting at 5:30. Then at 6 o'clock, we're expecting to hear from several members of or family members of the shooting victims. They're going to be speaking here, and there'll be a musical program as well. Also coming up at 4:30 tonight, we're going to hear from a woman who was inside of the mall and captured some video moments after that shooting happened. It was video that was viral. It was seen around the world. Ken.